podcast that floats down here.
Hi, I'm Melissa, your Stephen King veteran.
Hi, I'm Ben, the Stephen King and horror film fanboy.
And hello, I'm Luke, your first-time Stephen King reader.
The podcast.
Hello! Happy Sunday! Yes, it's Sunday. I know it's Sunday. It's not Monday, but we're here and we have our happy faces and our lack of patience shirts on. That is where we live. We are here talking tonight about Dr. Sleep, the sequel to The Shining. I use that term loosely. Sequel to The Shining. This was published in 2013, so it's as old as my son, and it is 531 pages long, at least the version I have here. The dedication is long. It is a long dedication, so I did not type it into the thing. I'm just going to read it from the book, and it says, "When I was playing my primitive brand of rhythm guitar with a group called the Rock Bottom Remainders, Warren Zevon used to gig with us. Warren loved gray t-shirts and movies like Kingdom of the Spiders. He insisted I sing lead on his signature tune, Werewolves of London, during the encore portion of our shows. I said I was not worthy. He insisted that I was. Key of G, Warren told me, and howl like you mean it. Most important of all, play like Keith. I'll never be able to play like Keith Richards, but I always did my best, and with Warren beside me, matching me note for note and laughing his fool head off, I always had a blast. Warren, this howl is for you wherever you are. I miss you, buddy." Super adorable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And on that note, speaking of adorable, I'm with my brothers. Hi, guys.
Howdy.
Hey, how's it going?
Cheers.
Good. We're here. How's it going?
Oh, it's going. We read a book, and I'm
We do this.
mostly ready to talk about it, I think.
You're out of your feels. You're ready to talk about it.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. I like this is a book that was so dense. There were like a million things I wanted to talk about that are difficult for a full book discussion. It was more like if this was like more of a chapter or like section by section thing, there's way more to unpack that I think we're gonna be able to get to, if that is fair.
Yeah, like I
Definitely.
read it too quickly, and not that I haven't read it several times. I have, but I've read it too quickly, and I was not in places where I could like stop and take notes
Mm-hmm.
because I had like something would happen. I'd be like, I have this big thought. I don't remember it when I finally sat down at the end of the book. Right? Yes, dense is a good, not in a bad way, just
Yeah, no, it's just full of material.
full of material. Okay. Thou Bench, anything new?
No, nothing. Same boat. Went through it twice, and it was just like, ooh, I want to remember that. I don't remember that. Ooh, I remember that. I don't remember that. So
Here's
It'll be a fun
hoping
discussion.
we each remember something different that sparks some ideas.
exactly.
That's usually how it goes, right?
Yeah.
Good job, us. Okay.
Plan to improvise.
So we're actually going to start with it's become one of my favorite sections. It's called the back cover synopsis, but I'm going to rename it as like, does the cover actually tell you what it's about?
Mhm.
Here we go. I like you, honey bear. That's why I came to warn you. Stay away from the woman in the hat. Years ago, the haunting of the Overlook Hotel nearly broke young Dan Torrance's sanity as his paranormal gift known as The Shining opened a door straight to hell. And even though Dan is all grown up, the ghosts of the Overlook and his father's legacy of alcoholism and violence kept him drifting aimlessly for most of his life. Now, Dan has finally found some order in the chaos by working in a local hospice, earning the nickname Dr. Sleep by secretly using his special abilities to comfort the dying and prepare them for the afterlife. But when he unexpectedly meets 12-year-old Abra Stone, who possesses an even more powerful manifestation of the Shining, the two find their lives in sudden jeopardy at the hands of the ageless and murderous nomadic tribe known as the True Knot, reigniting Dan's own demons and summoning him to the battles for this young girl's soul and survival. That's not bad.
Yeah, I'd say you get quite a
like-
bit out of there for sure.
Also, it reminded me of a thought that I had. So good job, back cover.
So, if you are new here, welcome. We kindly ask you to subscribe. If you are a returning student, welcome back. But so I have one side note I wanted to get to, and it goes along with the dedication. It's the afterword from Stephen King himself. And after 30 plus years, he can't help himself but still shit on Kubrick's film. I still find that hilarious. Like, 'cause it read the dedication that you read, and then it went right into his own thoughts about it. And he just can't help himself. You know, people love the movie. He's like, I don't know why, but you know, it's just like, okay, get over it a bit, bud. It's still its own thing.
It's funny because yeah, he basically goes, and for some reason people still like that movie that came out 35 years ago or whatever. He's just like, for some reason,
I don't get what he said.
right?
I don't get why people do, but
Yeah. So
that was hilarious.
you made me think about reading I didn't realize that was the dedication part of it. So yeah.
Yeah, in the audiobook, it just calls it author's note by the author,
Yeah.
read by the author.
Right.
So it has the dedication and then kind of further thoughts from
Goes
him.
into
on
it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I will mention before we get into this, there is a movie that just came out 2 years ago
Yes.
for this as well, with Ewan McGregor and a bunch of other people.
Mhm.
I have not seen it.
Me neither.
Okay, so just as a heads up, anyone in the chat,
Yeah.
feel free to put in comments about differences you hear from the movie if you've seen the movie or not. We can't really speak to it other than this is what the book is. So.
Well, I
And
can.
it exists.
I have seen it.
Oh, you have? Okay, I thought you said
I
you
have
hadn't.
seen it.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I'd seen it before I read this. Like, I watched it last year, and as I was reading it, I'm like, I've seen this before.
Hmm.
And forgetting I've seen it. It's like it's not absolute. You can't have
Sure.
absolute, but it hits the main points pretty well. Like, you know what's going on, and you get the story. So I recommend it. It's one of the ones I definitely recommend as an adaptation.
Cool.
All right. I would like to actually start with, like, if we're officially going to talk about the book now, my first real big thought as I was listening to this for like this official read through, right? I've read it a couple of times in the last few years. I feel like this is really 3 different distinct stories. I know a lot of the time you get Stephen King and you've got like the main story and then sort of sub stories, but to me, there are 3 big things happening here. Thing 1, whatever happened to little Danny?
Mhm.
That's like, and it's not that it's necessarily the book is in those 3 chunks, but that's like the first plot happening. Second plot, King's take on Alcoholics Anonymous. Right? That's also kind of fitting. That's the sequel to The Shining, which was also about being an alcoholic. So, like, I don't want to talk too much about that necessarily, but just that was a big thing going on.
Mhm.
Part 3, Scary Magic Kid Eaters.
Totally.
I feel like that, like, if I were to describe the book, that's it. In chunks. Like, those are the big 3. It misses the Abra stuff a little bit, but she feeds into the
Oh, she's
Yeah.
a
Magic
big
Kid
part
Eater
of the Magic
thing.
Kid Eater things for sure.
all right. So that, like, go from there as you will. That was like my big, if I had to categorize it in my brain, those are my categories.
Sure, I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any whatever happened to little Danny comments? Let's start there. Anybody have any notes that tie in with that necessarily?
No notes to it, but I mean, it is a nice tie-in to see the not just the, oh, he woke up one day, he grew up and he became an orderly and he's doing this. You get the backstory and you get the mentality, because you see a lot of times where children of alcoholics go one of 2 ways. You go down the following path, or you go down the complete abstinence, I'm never going to touch it, and your righteous path. I'm glad King took Dan into the first path, into the dark path first, to work himself out instead of being the over righteous kind of mentality that he could have taken it. So I liked him having to go through his struggles with Deanie and the kid and all that. It's a good start to the story, and I like how the story progresses over decades, and from basically the time of The Shining onwards up to 2013. And so yeah, that's kind of like that filters into the first 2 of them at least for you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I really liked getting Danny's backstory and seeing how, you know, a kid growing up with this kind of power, right? And almost like choosing to not use it, like repressing it a bit for a while and noticing how it kind of diminishes over time too. And it's it's really neat to see how that affected him growing up. It made things much more difficult. Everyone thinks, oh, if I have this superpower or whatever, sometimes it just makes things easier. That's not always the case. And in his case, with what he went through at Overlook Hotel and his dad and his mom and everything, like it was troubling for him, and he had to live through that and get past it. And I liked seeing how that affected him, and as we get towards the end of the story, how it affects his interaction with another superpowered kid and can be kind of a guide for her to some extent. And I mean, actually, an uncle kind of thing, which is a bit weird. We'll get to that. But um, it was nice to see how he was able to take his own experiences with it and channel it to an aid for her, dealing with it as a teenager and not knowing what is okay and what's not okay and am I okay? Like it was nice for her to have that, and he learned a lot from himself. And obviously, he went through his own struggles and got through those. And yeah, I thought that was all pretty well done for sure.
To me, it's just a little sad because, right, I didn't read the book when it came out, but I read it in 95. And I didn't read this again until maybe 2 years ago. So 25 years of thinking Danny was okay because he made it out, right? Because The Shining is a book that I love. I know that you guys weren't as big of fans of it when we read it, but I I was rooting for Danny. And when Halloran came and got him and he made it out, right? And then at the end of the book, when they're sitting on the beach, his mom and Halloran, and he's kind of playing in the water, you're like, he's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize he's still not fine. Like, there's so much trauma that wasn't addressed or fixed because it was the 70s and 80s, right? We don't send kids to therapy for trauma. That wasn't done. And so it just makes me so sad for him because there was so much potential in his life that was lost because of what had happened to him at the Overlook, right? So in the moment, we were so excited for him to be saved, and really, like, yes, obviously life is better when you have life, but like the quality of life was not nearly what you would have wished for this kid who you had been so invested in all those years before. So that kind of hit me there. But I feel like once he landed in the town with the train, whose name escapes me, his life started up again. That's when he made a home, finally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like that place. What's the tiny town?
Tiny Town? It's just called Tiny Town?
Well,
Yeah, but I mean, like the train thing, even like listening to it, reading it, I was like, I just can't even picture this thing, right? Maybe that's just me. I don't really know.
2 seconds. Small town Fraser.
That's right. So,
Fraser, New Hampshire.
all right. I'm going to skip over the alcoholics thing unless you guys have anything and just get straight to the kid eating magic people thing.
I'm fine with that. I mean,
Yeah, it was certainly a big part, but I thought it was more of part of his own character development. I didn't think it was really much of a plot. It was more of just seeing how he struggled with it and how that became his crutch, because he could turn it off basically if he was getting drunk. That's what caused him to become an alcoholic, was because of his shine ability. He was looking for a way to numb all of that. And I think that's really the main thing I got from it. And it was well done. I mean, I thought it was nice to see his recovery process and how even when he's there getting his 15-year whatever, and he was still saying like it's still difficult, like it doesn't make it really easier. It just, this is the new normal and it's still tough. But
it was definitely written by somebody who's gone through those steps and those processes, at one point in their life or another. You could tell like the intricacies of it, just the insights. King's smart. King's really smart, and I don't take any discredit from him, but you could tell he went through those meetings of reading the big book when there's only 5 people in the room, or whatever, because that's stuff you don't hear about. Like, I've watched plenty of shows where they do AA stuff, and they'll touch on a few things here and there, working the steps. But King goes in depth. Like there's stuff that I've never heard about in any other kind of pop culture in reference to it. So it's nice to see him drawing, or at least from what I understand, he's drawing from his own experience
Mhm.
on it.
If you haven't experienced it, this to me feels like an actual, this is what it's really like, not, oh, I
Mhm.
went to a meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Exactly.
definitely. I wouldn't say it felt like a preachy version of it either at all. Like from the way it's written, it's just for Danny, this is working, and it wasn't ever like beating you over the head like, hey, if you have a problem, you should go to these meetings, and this is why. Like that's not how it read at all. It was just going through his experience of understanding why it was working for him and what the different
Mhm.
pieces are that affected him differently at different times. And yeah, I just wanted to point out, it didn't feel preachy or like judgmental on anyone there or anyone that should be there that isn't. It just felt like a true description of what that can be like.
All right. Scary magic kid eater people. I see a lot of thoughts that you guys have, so I'm going to let you go and I will just jump in with my own take.
I'll let you start, Luke, on it.
Okay, I'm a big fan of the old people RV tribe as the camouflage for these shine sucking monsters, like basically vampires to some extent. And I just thought it was a really cool way of having that all make sense. Like how would a coven, if you will, survive in modern times for something like this? And it's like, well, they'll just act like old people and be, like in Sherlock
And not
Holmes,
have roots.
in the show Sherlock, it's like, who's killing all these people? It's the cabbie, the people that nobody ever pays attention to. It's like hiding in
Mhm.
plain sight. I love when that works, and it's just like, yeah, they're the nice people. Everything's, exactly by the book. They're not going to drive over the speed limit. If they ever did get pulled over, they'd have plenty of identification and an insurance, and it was just really well done to kind of hide in plain sight a coven of monsters like this. And I thought it was interesting for sure. I also thought it was really cool that we found out that they were the ones who own the Overlook Hotel. I thought that was kind of cool.
I have a recommendation. Because of the camouflage factor of the campers driving through sort of like not the main highways, right? They kind of would take off roads, and I don't recommend having this as the book you're listening to as you're driving through the mountains of Utah, through the national parks with no other cars in sight except for a couple of campers. That's when I was listening to this book when I was on that trip a few weeks ago, and I was
That's awesome.
like, and my husband, for the first time ever, guys, my husband listened to most of the book with me.
Ooh,
Nice.
nice.
I know, right? Like that never happens.
See, that's
And
gonna be
he's
the
like,
next book.
Wait, the campers. And so then he started pointing them out. He's like, there's a couple. I'm like, you stop, because we weren't terribly far from Colorado either, right? So I'm like, I'm just gonna need this to wait. So I had to finish the book on the plane because I could not keep listening to it while driving in the car around
I
all
could
of
see
the
that. I could see that.
campers.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I'm not a kid. Like, I don't have The Shining. Didn't matter. Still needed to stop.
So, kind of another off topic a bit, but your thought process, Luke. As I was reading this, I got the recommendation. I believe it was on Amazon. It might be on Hulu or it might be HBO Max. I'm not sure, but it was, I think it was an Oscar winning movie this year. But what was it? Convoy? No, Nomadland. And it's basically about a woman and like right at the crash of 08, 09, kind of lost everything and just started living out of her van, meeting up with all these other nomads and like you go around country like to different like just events and stuff. Like they meet ups and
Just
you just
living in a van down
pretty
by
much
the
and
river.
and it's just like, so that's how you start as the true nut. Like they go to these meetups like you're already in it, you're already in the mentality, thing. But I actually like the way they pick their people too. They wait because what's her name? Snakebite. She could
Andy.
Mhm.
Andy. She could have easily been just a target. She could have easily been just a victim of theirs, but they saw what she had in her to turn her, and I like that they started with that introduction of the True Knot, apart from Baseball Boy being the first introduction. You get this, okay, they're evil, but that's kind of freaking cool, kind of like that anti-hero kind of mentality almost. They're
Okay,
bad.
so on that note, I love that you said that because I weirdly found myself deeply sympathizing with Rose the Hat and the True Knot, and her, like, in her heart of hearts, just her quest to save her family, and and like anything to take care of my people, and we do what we have to do. It's just survival. And then I like slap myself in the face. I'm like, yes, but in order to survive, they're literally sucking the soul out of humans. So maybe not so much be friends with them, but like her story was compelling. She
Yeah.
was a empathetic bad guy.
Yeah. And in fairness, like if you look at it from their perspective, they're just eating. It's like they're not technically bad in the sense of, are we bad for going and killing a pig?
They
to
specifically call that out too, which I love, because they
Yeah.
start, like, you do the same thing. Like, we're the humans and you're the food. Like, what are you supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? Just off ourselves because this is our nature now? Like, what? I just love when you get the monster mentality of,
Yeah.
I mean, in their heads, they're
The-
not monsters. They're just surviving, right? And I just love that we get an
Our
actual
evil.
conversation in there from them to the rubes, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I get it. You can't blame them, really. Like,
which is another funny thing that we did this book right after Joyland. Yep. Melissa was on the same mindset of, the public are the rubes, and
mhm,
same thing, like that connection there.
yeah,
I wonder how far apart were these in the
same year. They were released the
year?
same year.
Okay, so yeah, so he had that mentality of, Carney, still wrapped up in his head. So that makes sense. So, all right, well, do we want to say anything else about okay, because I'm gonna move over to the Danny side of things with Abra and all that. And this is just a broad stroke kind of King thing. He's definitely got a 3 men and a baby thing going on. Like this is now, I'm going to call it the fourth 3 men and a baby scenario, where it might not be just 3 men, it might be four or more, but a group of adults taking care of a child, like guiding a child along. We had it in Cell, we had it in Insomnia, or not Insomnia, we had it in Cell, we had it in Salem's Lot, we had it in there's one other one I believe we did Cujo, kind of, not really, but the Green Mile. And I used Green Mile as I can't remember, John basically being the child being led along
Sure.
to, whatever. You had 3 adults. And it's not a bad trope or anything like that, but he definitely sticks with this. You have to have this guy for this adult for this adult for this, and then the one to protect kind of thing to bring up. And it's not again, a bad mentality, but it's just, I'm noticing the theme of it just every once in a while. Oh, I know the one I'm thinking of, but I can't say because it's not a book we've covered. So it's a different book. That's why I thought there was 4. Okay. Anyway, but so I had that thought process of the 3 men and a baby. And I like that because each one of these men had their own connection to Abra, apart from Jerry, Dan's friend.
Yeah. He was just there because he had the little bit of the shine.
Isn't that
Yes.
Bill?
The train
Is that-
driver
is that
dude.
Bill.
Yeah, because John was
John
the
was the
doctor,
pediatrician. Yep.
and Dan
Billy.
or Dave was the
The dad.
dad. Yeah. And then it was Billy. It was Uncle Billy.
Uncle Billy.
Yeah.
Yep. But not really Uncle.
Yeah.
But yes,
Uh,
Billy.
And so you had all 4 of them kind of converging to work this plan. And it was a good plan. In fairness, that's one thing about this, they never failed as a thing, apart from Abra getting kidnapped for an hour, let's say. they never really failed at anything, and that always kind of bugs me when there's not a little bit more tension of little diehardness. But anyway, my other part of that note is King is son of a bitch. He's writing in emojis now, because I didn't read the book. But like, if you listen to Dan and Abra's conversation as they're talking, she's like flashing emoji images up to him as as they're talking, just to do quick thoughts. And I'm like, I wish I had the book in front of me, because I would have shit my pants had there been like a naked man symbol standing there instead of it like written out as a naked man symbol or whatever terms they used.
No, he actually wrote it out.
He actually wrote it. I think it'd be more hilarious if he actually did it in emoji. Like it would have been killer for it, because that's how a 12-year-old in 2013 and 2020 think at the time, when you're used to text and everything, you text an emoji. And so it's like, that's actually perfect. Yeah, I know. Same. Every once in a while.
It's been a while since I've been 12, but yes, like, because that's normal now, right? That's what we do.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to the plan for a second, just because you said something about the plan being really effective. I was like, yes, they used their resources wisely. I feel like this is the first time, because the Shine has shown up, whether explicitly or implicitly, often, right? It is just sort of in the King realm of the Shine. However, this time it was, here's the Shine. Here's how we can use it to our advantage. We've never seen it be that proactively an offense before.
One other time. On purpose, no.
John Coffey.
Purposefully used, no.
Which one?
We've seen him more efficiently used once, Carrie, because this confirms that Carrie has a version of the Shine based off of Abra's kinetic abilities.
Man, I can't wait till we read the Institute.
Just saying.
I mean, I'm going to say John Coffey used it pretty effectively too as a weapon at one point.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
on purpose. He literally sucked
Yes,
out the...
because you could...
He weaponized the disease, is what he did.
Which
and
is a
transferred
lot
it.
like what Dan did.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Different, like, Dan really used sort of that dying breath thing.
It was a similar idea, though. I mean, it was definitely... and I
same
was
idea.
like, oh, yeah, that's cool. He's doing it again. Because, we don't really know what's going on there. And he's just kind of getting sicker and sicker. But they don't make it, like, explicit, like, what he did. But you can kind of tell if you think back to, like, John Coffey, where he's just, comes back and he's sick. And they're like, oh, man, is he going to die? But he holds on to it just long enough to deliver it. And that's kind of almost exactly the same thing that we hear. But this was traveling halfway across the United States to do so. And so you see kind of a prolonged exposure to it, which, if he waits too long, it probably would have killed him. But along with that, I really do think it's cool. I mean, here's my magical mechanics nerd hat, but I really love when we get to unpack how the magical systems kind of work and what different abilities. Are they the same things or are they completely different things? And here they make it pretty explicit. They're all the same things that fall under Shining, basically. The Shine is just like basically magical essence. It's the steam is what they call it. And it's transferring.
It's midichlorians.
Basically, it's in some way it really is.
Got it.
It's it's an actual thing, and it covers a very broad range of magical abilities, and we really haven't seen much of that. I mean, the first exposure we get to The Shining is The Shining, and it's like, oh, maybe some mind reading and about Carrie. I guess at this point we can go back and say yes, that is an active version of using the Shine, but it is not called that at all. So you're like, oh, is there like a completely different kinetic magic thing? This puts a bow on it and says they're all the same, and different people can do different things.
It's like genetics are a little different, but everybody has the same type of genes. You all have this. It manifests differently, much as mutants do.
Yeah, I mean, you could say the kids from It, probably the Losers Club, all had something because they knew that it was going down, or at least the adults, because when Mike was in the hospital and they're down in the tunnels, they knew they had to send their energy up to him and this and that. And that's another manifestation of
Well,
it.
even being able to see Pennywise when other people couldn't, doesn't that feel a lot like
Yeah.
what the Overlook Hotel was like? I mean, when you really start connecting them, yes, I agree completely.
That's right. I really want to go back and reread The Shining now. I didn't overly love it the first. It just felt like it was really long and boring to some extent. But having more insight on what's going on, I think I would enjoy it more now.
Hmm.
Agreed. I'm gonna definitely give it another read through.
Yeah. All right. Any other big thoughts? I don't have any more. I kind of got all mine out. So
Got one more, and it kind of goes into that same conversation. But this, basically, we always hear during The Shining how like mega powerful Danny is, right? Dick Halloran's like, no, what you've got going on is way more than I've ever seen. So like he's primo shine boy, right? That's what I'm gonna call him for the rest of ever, primo shine boy. And
PSB.
right, and like that's great and all. And then we meet another person that's even much higher than him. Like I don't know, that always seems kind of soft in my opinion, where it's like, oh, we meet the number one stunner, and then guess what, next book we have to up the ante, so we get the 0.1 stunner. Like it's like 10 times better, but you already said that this guy's like when you kind of change the goalpost on the level, and obviously it's just exposure for what we've had, and maybe Dick Halloran doesn't know that many people. It's usually just kind of like what he runs across with like Billy, where it's just a touch, a little bit here and there. But I don't know, it just seemed kind of like, let's raise the bar maybe too far. Like I think it should have been like, and she's also at the same level as
Or
PSB.
Well-
she's at the same level he was when he was little, but he didn't have anybody to consistently guide him from birth like she did,
That's true.
pretty
Yeah.
much.
Because and that kind of goes to how I like to like take your theories and just like prove them right. So here's the thing: she's Jack Torrance's granddaughter. So in that lineage, there's some version of the Shine in that bloodline. She's also a abuela, not abuela, that's a different thing. Great grandma, Momo.
Momo.
She is Momo's descendant. So she's got lineage from two fairly strong lines of Shine coming together to form her up on that, and through her mother, basically, coming down both through, or coming down through her mother and then into her. And so I mean, it's not unheard of or unlikely that the bloodlines connected and made the super Shine.
And Danny's 40.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Like, it's
I mean, I
fated.
get it, but the way he describes it is like he says that she's way more powerful than he ever was. But there's no way of measuring that. We need to get our midichlorian devices out here and start measuring their steam.
Where's
but-
Liam Neeson when you need him?
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's the difference between Lumos and Lumos Solarum or whatever thing.
Lumos Maxima.
That's it. Yeah. There you go. That's it.
So that was one thing that I wouldn't say I disliked, but it just seems like that happens often. And there's a fair point there that you're making, that maybe it is more genetic based, which they kind of question in the book. They're not sure if it is or not at one point. At least the True Knot, I think they were talking about it, where they're like, we're not sure, but definitely we know that it's more potent in children, and then it diminishes over time. But yeah, and I think the guide part of it makes a lot of sense too, of her always having PSB in her back pocket without even knowing it, kind of helping her somewhat get on a use it effectively kind of track.
So I just had two more notes, real quick ones. First of all, the True Knot was not destroyed, because before the Great Confrontation, they said there was a splinter group that took off south. So only Woman in the Hat, her, tribe has been destroyed. Now, they were probably the more powerful of the bunch and everything, but do I see a spinoff? Maybe.
And like the splinter groups were small. It was like, I think a group of 2 here and then like a group of 3 over here. So
Yeah.
there was like 2 separate ones. But I thought that too. Like he didn't get everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He didn't get everybody.
Exactly. So I mean, King's got to let it open up for just in case Abra gets he makes it to when Abra can be 30 years old or something and send her on her own story.
Or it could
Abra,
just
the
be
not hunter,
they
the
come
not
in,
untire.
they come in a different story completely differently. You know, it just goes and spins off
Yeah.
into completely unrelated to these characters, but those, you know, it just
Mhm.
opens that door to, oh, well, there are more out there. If they come up again, that door is wide open.
Yeah. And so my last note is that Jack Torrance gets some redemption because of all the ghosts and everything that helped out. He was there at the Overlook and assisted with everything. I forget exactly how. I know at the end he was waving up to him, but I think it was the wind gust. He knocked the hat
It
off.
was like pushing. Yeah.
Yeah. He pushed during over the cliff. That's right. And it was a nice wrap up to that. I mean, because as we said, like in the book wise, Jack actually was a complex character. Was he a true villain? Was he a true victim? You know, and this
Mhm.
ties it up into regardless, he was able to become a pseudo hero. So I like that for the end of Jack.
In a way that allows Dan
Mm.
to reconcile some of the things that maybe he's been dealing with for the last 35 years of who really is my dad and what, like, this was awful, but he did this thing, like he was okay, but he wasn't okay, right? The idea of my good dad versus my bad dad, and at the end my good dad won, and this was kind of proof.
Mhm.
So I could see this as a closure for him in a way that was useful.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think so. One quick question. I don't know what Melissa's questions are. We'll get to them, but on the idea of the True Knot and that, you know, this type of consuming shine steam creature, could Pennywise be the exact same thing, just at an ultra elite level? I mean, he's basically consuming kids for their shine. I mean, is that wide open to discussion? I mean,
I think it's like, I wonder, could he be some sort of distant
Mhm.
ancestor
Right,
of this,
right.
right? Maybe they are a watered down version
A more humanized
Yeah.
version of it somehow.
because they're just humans, but he
Right.
could be
The
the
originator of that
Mhm.
on Earth
Yeah.
to some extent.
And it could be hence why they can only go after the shine itself. And they learned, hey, maybe if we cause fear, they said the
Right.
fear
Yeah,
makes
that's
the
what
shine
made me
taste
think of
better.
it. Mhm.
And on top of it, though, they were trying to prolong it with Abra. They wanted to be able to injure and prolong the release.
Right.
I didn't quite understand exactly how they were, like, 'cause
Basically,
lot of
they were
times you
gonna. It's
gloss
gonna
over.
the difference between having a dairy cow and a beef cow. They were trying
Yeah.
to avoid the slaughter and have her long term and just torture her over time and collect that steam over time. They
yeah.
kind of did that to the baseball boy too. They prolonged the torture just to try to milk
Gotcha.
more steam out of him.
And that was like the tester or not the tester, but that's
That's
where
kinda
they
what got
kinda-
the idea.
they
Mhm.
proved the concept,
Mhm.
proof of concept. Yeah. And so, I mean, I could definitely see that, like, Pennywise can feed just off the fear itself, hence why he can just go after any kid in Derry. But yeah, them being a descendant of his, they can only feed off of the kids that have the shine because they're more potent and they need the more direct line.
Or maybe the only kids that ever got picked up by Pennywise had the shine to some extent, even if it's just a little bit. I don't know. I mean,
I mean, the only one, like, because Hawkstetter would be like
I bet he was shining.
he was something.
He was something. Probably addled his brains a little bit.
Yeah.
and even if, I mean, Pennywise maybe doesn't need them to be as shiny.
True.
Right.
Because he's got the full fort, like he can take. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. It was just
that's
something
fair.
that I kind of thought about, and it was one of those I thought about while reading, and then didn't put it in my notes because it just came up in my head again. So that's all I got.
Allowed. Okay. Discussion questions. Question 1. So this book is also a study of alcoholism, right? Much like The Shining was. However, this time we see it through the lens of Danny and how he dealt with it versus back in The Shining, how Jack dealt with his
Mhm.
alcoholism. We also are getting this now through King's older and more sober eyes, right? Because we know what King was like when he was writing early on. How does King's perspective from his life change the story? And like how much of an impact is his life having on it, and is that good, bad, or otherwise?
I mean, as I said before, you could tell that he was pulling from his own experiences as writing about it. So, and kind of goes that actually is a good point. Kind of goes back to my other note of the 3 Men and a Baby. That it's a lot of his newer stuff is the parental, guidance, more mature, more elderly mentality. And I think that
Not
comes,
either I'm sorry, just going to jump in really quick.
yeah,
Not the 11-year-old perspective or the perspective of a young parent who doesn't know what
exactly.
he's doing. Okay, continue.
Exactly, and it's coming through as the protector of the children, especially in this book, and he's showing, yeah, the big difference. You can look at The Shining as drunk and high Stephen King. Doctor Sleep is sober Stephen King, and you can see a stark difference in the writing and in the feeling. He's still putting his feelings into each character, but you can tell that instead of writing about the darkness and about the anger and the bitterness that he had back then, like he did in The Shining for his main character, he's writing about the hurt and the struggle and the drive to be better in Doctor Sleep. And so you see that a lot through his writing, especially this year, seeing it with like just everything we've read. Like, it's definitely the old man Stephen King, which is not a bad Stephen King. It's just old man Stephen King. But this one definitely shows the stark difference between drunk and sober, user and, or addict and recovering Stephen King. The best way I can put it.
Yeah, I mean, I think any author that's been writing for 50 years, they're gonna develop over time, right? It's gonna change, and I think there is a maturity to the writing that it makes it maybe more approachable without just being, oh, scary, silly idea. Let's see what we can go with this. This is more thought out, more planned, and pulling. And he also has this huge repertoire of characters and ideas that he can pull to. And how many times have we referenced different books where we're like, oh, that's kind of similar here. Like we can do that, and it fills the story in itself easier. When we read Carrie, it was like, well, this is nothing like it. So there's really nothing to really compare it to. Obviously, looking back now, we could be like, oh, there are connecting things there that I would never have
Right.
known about. Like it, but looking back, like as soon as you have that catalog, mental library of things to work from, it rounds it out. So I think it's not only just the sober versus drunk Stephen King thing. I think it's also just a fuller experience that we've had, even just as a team talking about these. It makes it easier to come up with things rather than, oh, I remember that kind of thing. And how many times have you guys said something where I'm like, oh, that makes me think of this or like this, and like those connect things all the time. So like I think there's definite development and change, but it's still at the core just really good writing.
So I agree with both of what you guys said. I think something else that comes into play here is the idea that Jack tried to lock himself away to cure himself of alcoholism, right? Or whatever the problem is. I feel like that's, I'm going to say, a young man's idea, but really it's like a young adult's idea of, I'm going to fix it. I just have to make it better. I have to be perfect and I have to be right. And I have to be right the whole time, and it's got to go away, and I'm just going to fix it and it'll never be a problem again. That sounds so familiar from when I was younger and either first married and first working and like having to be right all the time and having to be perfect all the time and getting so mad when every little thing went wrong. And now it's like, okay, well, today didn't work. I can try again tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that in this book. The idea that you might have a bad day, you might slip up. I can't promise you I'm going to be fine tomorrow because all I can do is today. And I think he tells that in terms of being part of AA, but it's really, like you said, the a more experienced perspective of, I've lived long enough to know that you're not, like, nothing's ever perfect. Nothing ever is just exactly the way it's supposed to be forever. It can always be ruined tomorrow. Therefore, I can control today. And if today is bad, I can reset tomorrow. And that's as much as I need to control. And that's okay. I hear that a lot in this book, and I like that. I like that sort of calm, we're going to do this because I'm a drunk and this is what I do, but today I can handle it. And I'm only worrying about this because it's when you start thinking, I have to do this forever, or I have to do it big, and I have to be, that's when it becomes too much. And I can't do it, so I'm just going to drink
Mhm.
or do whatever that it is that I do if I can't handle my things. So I don't know. I like that perspective as well of focus on what you can do. There's nothing to do with the rest of it.
I think that was really well said.
Question 2. What are your thoughts on the twist of Abra being Dan's niece?
I thought that was a little soft as well. To me, it was like, I get it. It made sense. Not needed, in my opinion. It didn't hurt the story, but it was something that was like, oh, that's cute. Okay. Of course it is. Why the fuck wouldn't it be? Like, I don't know. It wasn't surprising. To me, it was unnecessary, is where I'll leave it.
Yeah, it added nothing to it apart from making Jack that much more of a douchebag, because didn't it say him and Wendy hooked up in college? Like they were together in college. So when did he hook up with Abra's grandma?
When he was the teacher.
So
Not Abra's grandma, Abra's mom.
Abra's
Oh,
mom.
no.
No,
You're
it
right.
was-
No, you're
yeah,
right. Abra's grandma. Yeah.
Abra's grandma. So yeah, when he was a teacher, so was that before he was with Wendy? That was during.
No, no.
that-
Yeah.
Abra's mom is younger than Dan.
I know.
So basically, yes, he cheated on her.
That's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
Yes,
Yeah. So
yes,
yeah,
I'm
no,
confirming.
that's
I think they pretty much say that. I think
Okay,
Dan
yeah.
pretty much goes through that in his head.
okay. And there's times where again, glancing, you listening
Yep.
and stuff, and I'm like, so it's like, so yeah, it kind of takes away my point of earlier. If he gets his, very end, hey, good job. Yeah, you still cheated on my mom while you were a
Right.
raging asshole, kind of thing. And it's just like, so yeah, kind of unneeded to screw that one last bit into Jack on it for that. Had it been he hooked up with her in college right before he met Wendy or whatever, okay. But now was it implied that Jack was the one driving the car that killed, the mom, the grandma too?
No.
Or was that someone
I
different?
don't think
I think
so.
that was something else.
Okay.
I can't say.
Yeah.
I didn't get quite back to there in my reread today, and I don't quite remember that.
Yeah, I don't believe so. I could be. I'm pretty sure I'm wrong about it, and I don't think it is. But I was just curious. So
I mean, unless she was the kid on the bike that Jack and his friend thought they hit that one night, but that would be like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah,
like
yeah.
too much. I don't know.
Oh.
But on your
I-
comment there, Bench. Sorry, one.
Nope. Please.
I think maybe that's put in there just as one final reminder that, yeah, Jack was not a good dude. Because we haven't really seen, we just hear about, oh, what happened at the Overlook Hotel. But like, you need to have
He
like that
broke my
one
arm.
final memory or thing, piece of information. Is like, yeah, he was kind of a piece of shit. Just before you can actually get that final redemption. Because he hasn't really been in the book other than referenced
Yeah.
a couple times. So maybe just like one more little thing to really make you feel that again that we had during The Shining.
I was blatantly annoyed by this. I mean, like, and I've read the book and I came to it and I was like, damn it, I forgot about this. This is so stupid. This is so stupid because I like the idea of The Shining being random and being able to just be and that it pops up in weird places. To me, it ruins some of that of like, oh, of course she's strong because we're related. No, that's just stupid. So
Yeah.
I was annoyed for a completely different reason, and I agree with all of you. But I think it's dumb. Anyway, question 3. Actually, yes, question 3. How appropriate is the title Dr. Sleep?
I'd say it's pretty accurate. I mean, it's clearly a big part of who he is. We didn't even talk about that of, when he's working as an orderly, he becomes well known for going into people's rooms and helping them ease into basically their deathbed and kind of helps them transition over. Before we started this, I knew that was a part of it. That's like part of the back cover synopsis, right? So like And I'm like, I thought that was gonna be a much, much bigger part of the story. It turned out to be a very different story than what I had just preconceived in my head. I thought that was gonna be like the main thing. And I was like, how are they gonna make this interesting? So I think it's accurate in that it happens, but does it cover the whole story? Not really. But I don't know, personally I don't think it hurts it, but there may have been better options. I don't know I can't think of one, but it seems like they could have, because it wasn't just about that. Like that to me was a pretty small part of it that almost should have been like a short story. You could take that chunk out and just have that be a thing on its standalone thing, and that would be good. But that's like a quarter or less of the actual what's going on.
Well, to that point, I could actually see this book coming out in the Green Mile serialized style. You could hit those points on each, in like 5 to 6 volume thing that, and yeah, Dr. Sleep part would be probably number 1. You'd have everything up till he becomes Dr. Sleep. Then Abra, gets her own little novella. And then, then you get into the True Knot. Then Abra True Knot, then final, resolution. I could see that all working very well. So, and I would still call it Dr. Sleep because I would title the first novella Dr. Sleep. So it'd be the Dr. Sleep series. Yeah.
I like
so
it. I'm for it.
I like it a lot better than, don't get me wrong, I love this book. But for the purpose of the title they chose, I think the title it bothers me because it isn't the story. And no, you don't want to give away the story, but the book Carrie's about a girl named Carrie. Okay. Salem's Lot, Pet Cemetery, even Misery, the author who's main character, but Dr. Sleep doesn't, yeah, that's like his gig, but that's not the plot.
He uses it. It's the Goblet of Fire syndrome. The Goblet of Fire had legitimately almost nothing to do with that book, apart from 2 scenes, but that's the goal. And so the Dr. Sleep thing, it's the pretext. He gets the payoff from Momo and takes it and uses that Dr. Sleep power on the rest of the True Knot to help win. So it's the Goblet of Fire syndrome of where it doesn't make sense. It's not that important. Order of Phoenix is actually probably a better one. That one made no sense, but but it's the titling where it's like you got to find something to kind of hook, but it doesn't have to be everything.
So I will say, I think it does need to be Dr. Sleep, because then you ask yourself, who is that? Oh, it's the little boy from The Shining. Marketability skyrockets.
Yeah.
Whether or not
I know.
that's the only reason it is. And I think it fits because the story is mostly about him. I mean, he is our main character throughout. We spend a lot of time with Abra later on, and we spend some time with the True Knot as well, but in general, that's the hook. That's the selling point. Oh, let's see what happened to Danny Torrance. That's what you're selling. And if you can put it in some context of, oh, what does that mean? Like for him, that's going to get people to buy it. Not that there was any question of people wanting to buy this book when it came out.
Yeah.
But that's why I think it clearly is what it is.
And one other thing, it does do the nice tie back to What's Up, Doc? His nickname as a kid, and so
I will no longer blatantly think it's terrible. I will simply let it go.
I think I really like Benji's idea, though, of splitting it up into multiple
100 pages, because you said it's 500 pages.
530, yeah,
530.
roughly.
100-page novellas. Boom, 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 boom.
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah.
Cut, print.
I'd watch it as a BBC miniseries.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be a perfect place for it. Okay. Question number 4. Would this book work as a standalone for those who haven't read The Shining? Why or why not?
Yes, it would. It stands alone well enough. I mean,
yeah.
I think it points back to things that happened at the Overlook Hotel well enough that you would get the idea. without it being the Babysitters Club. Hey, let's retell the whole story again, and
Yeah.
Chapter 2.
right, the chapter 2 syndrome. But like, I don't think you get that. It's more of things are, alluded to. Things are, described as to what this is briefly what happened. If you want more detail, you can go read that book. But it's more about the fallout of what happened there and how that affects
Yeah.
PSB, Primo Shine Boy. But I think it stands alone pretty well.
I do too, and I think honestly, this would absolutely drive people to go and read The Shining if they hadn't.
I would agree
Yeah.
with that.
Like, because like even myself and Luke have both said we want to go back and reread it now after reading this, even
Mhm.
though we both it fell lower on our lists, personally, and so yeah, it makes me want to revisit it, and I can see a new Stephen King reader, a new reader, wanting to be like, what happened before this?
Mhm. Okay. What was your favorite thing?
Got one, Benj?
I've been kicking it around, and I'm gonna go for the off the base one, Abra. I actually really enjoyed her as a character. Not super overwritten for a 12-year-old. He's getting better at it. She was smart. She was very like with it, but she was just a smart 12-year-old. She wasn't like oh my god, we're gonna do that. No, she was just a 12-year-old with psychic powers. And so it's like you gotta give him a little bit of leeway. I give her more leeway than I gave Danny, because Danny talked like she did back when he was 6, and that's the problem that bugs me. But Abra felt like a 12-year-old, like a 12, 13-year-old, kind of just trying to work her head around being a youngin and having this shit just piled on top of her. She was just written well, and I liked her just as a character. She wasn't a passive child.
And she had flaws too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not
I
gonna
like that they
steal that
touched the
answer,
anger
but
thing. I like
yeah.
that they touched, at the end.
I quite liked her as a character for sure, and I agree. It was level wise, makes a lot of sense as to why she's super intelligent when she can literally read people's minds in her entire life. Like
Yeah.
she's naturally going to be much higher than your regular
Mhm.
15-year-old, 16-year-old. So, my favorite thing, I gotta say, it was just the whole idea of uh, the True Knot itself. Just the idea of these monsters hiding in plain sight, stealing kids, living off their essence. I don't know. I thought it was really, really well done. It fits very well into the Shining magical mechanics stuff, which I always really love. It makes me question other things that we've seen, like, now that it's so prevalent. So just kind of the combination of more Shining information and how they are using it themselves. And I thought they were one of the most interesting villain groups we've seen in any of these books.
Mhm. My favorite thing was Dan Torrance. I think this was an excellent study of what happened to little Danny. I love his fall from grace. I loved his dragging himself, kicking and screaming back up the Rocky Mountain to sobriety and to like being okay with being okay. I liked the friends that he made and just his life. Like he lived a decent life and it was small, right? He didn't go, climbing mountains and sol- you know, solving cancer. He just lived a simple life as an orderly who, helped people and also ended up having like a special friend on a chalkboard, and I liked that, like, when they were meeting up, he recognized just how bad it looked to be a middle-aged guy meeting. Like, I liked that he had enough wherewithal, and that felt true for his character. Say, I'm meeting up with the 12-year-olds. We're gonna call you're my uncle. Okay, that's good because this looks really bad. Like, I don't know. I like Dan,
Mm-hmm.
but I think both of your answers are also accurate.
I like their interaction too, Dan and Abra, and how, just mentally connected they would have conversations, and like how weird that would be And like, especially if there's like a third person there who isn't getting it, they're like, we have to talk out loud, okay? Like, like almost like the idea of creating a hive mind thing in the future
Yes.
that opens that door for sure. But I just thought it was really well done on those age wise thing, like you mentioned, and just two really interesting characters that are just kind of figuring it out.
Okay, guys.
No,
This is the hardest part.
this
I
is
know.
not going to be easy at all.
I know. I know it is not. I apologize in advance.
You're in the wrong box, Luke.
However,
I know. I'm not on it yet. Nope. Hey.
here is our current ranking.
It messes up every time we do this. Hang on a second.
Aw. I'm just sharing my screen. Come on, Zoom.
Here we go. It is not liking this. We lost our video entirely for some reason.
No. Oh no.
I'm gonna click a button and come right back to it. So if you're listening, you're gonna hear music for a second. Ignore it.
Good job.
Still nothing. Okay. Technical difficulties. Anyway, yeah, they can't see that.
Do you want me to oh, well, then that's really
Well,
frustrating.
they can't see
I
us
made a
either right
full
now. So
fancy thing.
Yeah.
I shall unshare.
this has never happened.
But we're not really disappeared.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, it's happened. Just maybe not on this stream.
I'm very sorry. I don't know what OBS is not doing. Well, I do. I know what it's not doing.
Can you hear me now?
Well,
Yeah.
I think they can hear us, but we have lost our our thing. What can I do? What can I
Maybe
do?
capture new window. Do a quick new window capture.
That might work.
Okay. Yeah. So we're being heard. So that's good. Hi, folks. Sorry about the.
All right,
delay.
we won't
It
talk bad
happens.
about anyone, I promise. Luke is clicking buttons.
I am
Yeah.
clicking all the buttons right now.
Oh, trust me, if you've ever been on a Citadel trivia stream that I've hosted, you've seen issues very similar to these, so it's nothing new. But
They can't even see me looking confused as to why it's not working.
Luke's confused face is highly entertaining.
Oh,
It
man.
is.
Does it really mess up like that every time I share my
Not
screen?
this
or is
bad.
it- Okay.
yeah, I wonder.
The video is pink geometry, but we sound wonderful. Thank you for the feedback in
Thanks,
the chat.
Rod.
All right. Well,
All right, looks like we might be going audio only for the rest of it.
Yeah, see, it
What?
just doesn't like that. It doesn't like that. It says it's on the right thing. But it is not working. Okay.
Okay.
We're just gonna have to go audio only. Sorry, everyone.
Yep. So I'll do a quick rundown of top 10 that we have 1 to 10. We have Dolores Claiborne, 11/22/63, Pet Cemetery at number 3, Green Mile at number 4, Misery at number 5, Needful Things at number 6, Joyland at number 7, Great Gerald's Game at number 8, Doom McKee at number 9, and It is sitting at number 10 right now.
and
So-
currently we've read 18 books total.
Yes.
So it's possible that, there's others in there as well. So basically each of us are going to decide where on this list we would put given our number, and then it'll give us an average. So if you both want to, don't hit enter, but if you both want to type in your thoughts in the box. Luke is not in the box.
Where is the list again? I'm not seeing it.
Oh, it is
And I was-
on the, if you're in the workbook, click the ranking in the Stephen King bookography link.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Sorry,
mean,
I'm
I
all
guess it's a
flustered
screen
for
share.
things not working. That's
I know I can screen share since really no one can see us.
that's okay. I got it. Damn, this might be the most difficult one we've.
Yeah. I'm pretty solid on my pick.
Okay.
Luke, how you feeling over there?
I'm
Good.
typed in. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, enter. Oh, mine is not entering. Mine is not entering. There we go. Jeez.
There we
Whew.
go. Okay.
All right. I pick 5, Luke pick 3, Benji pick 6, giving us an official ranking of 4. So it takes over the Green Mile as the 4th place. It is not as high as Pet Cemetery, which is still up there. It's fine. Not fine.
So that's, I mean, I'm not surprised. I knew both of you would really enjoy this one and rank it higher. I really enjoyed this book, and this is gonna be my final thought here. So we'll kind of
Go for it.
The reason I picked 6 is I just enjoyed Misery better, and I just couldn't bring myself to put it above Misery itself. Just I absolutely adore that book. However, this one's solid. This one I like better than The Shining. I know Melissa's going to disagree, which is fine.
I am.
But
It's okay.
you know, I enjoyed this because there's more characters, there's more character development, there's more intrigue, there's more like just actual story, like actual things happening, than The Shining itself. And it's again age-wise, Shining's a great story, but this one brings the world together, and as Luke had said, it connects the dots so well. It helps open your eyes to everything involved. So I'm comfortable with my 6. I'm fine with it's in the number 4. Don't hate the where it landed. So that's all I got.
Luke?
I really enjoyed this book. And Benji said it perfectly for me. I love how it connects everything. We get more detail on how this magical system works, and it's prevalent through everything to some extent. And I think this is the first book where we get kind of more direct information of what's going on. This feels a lot like, oh, what was the one? Sorry, I gotta look back at the list. Which one is it? Oh, Insomnia, where we basically get the upper levels of beings in that book. It kind of opens up to the behind the scenes of the magical framework, the reality framework of what's going on in the book, and I really, really appreciated that. Obviously, we get some of that in 11/22/63 as well. You get kind of behind the curtain scenes of what's going on, and that's just one of my favorite things that we're able to do is unpack those. And this one is way up there for me. Characters were great, like Benji said as well. I feel like there were a lot of really interesting characters doing really interesting plot things. Shining, some really great characters that don't do a whole lot. Like they're just kind of there. But I think this book just does everything it does well. Besides the little nitpicks that we had earlier about, do they really need to be related? Not really. So just little things like that. But I thought it was a very good book, and I had to put it above Pet Cemetery. So,
I mean, I would have put it above Pet Cemetery, but I couldn't put it above Green Mile. That's how I felt.
I struggle with that one too.
Because I think this book would have benefited, like Benji said, from a serialized release a bit. And as somebody who deeply loves The Shining, I had a hard time with this book the first and second time I read it. It was really this third time that I could appreciate it for the story that it is, as opposed to the story that I wanted it to be, which I think is the curse of all super fans with anything new released, which is why I always keep giving it multiple reads, because I don't want my preconceived notions to impact how I'm actually taking in the story itself, right? Love it for what it is, not for what I wanted it to be. I feel like that's something we can all practice in the nerd realm, folks. Hi. Here's your daily gossip, Melissa. Honestly, I really liked this book a lot. I am really, really happy with how they did Dan, how they let him grow as a real human and not just this superpowered little boy. I am a little worried coming up, to be honest, because I haven't read anything else until the very last book of the year. So this was my last anchor. So I'm just nervous moving forward, but it's good. All right.
All right. Well, with that said, make sure you're following us on our social medias at Floats Down Here on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you send us your digital chalkboard hellos to floatsdownhere@gmail.com. Check us all of our shows out at thepodcastthat.com, and make sure you subscribe, rate us on iTunes and on YouTube under Drawbridge Media.
Hey, this show and all of our shows at thepodcastthat.com and Drawbridge Media are produced with the love and support of our wonderful Imaginary Legion patrons. You can learn more about our reward tiers at patreon.com/stayimaginary.
Join us in July when we read Mr. Mercedes,
That looks
where
big.
we are introduced for the first time. What, Benj?
I just said that looks big. Okay.
When we are introduced for the first time to retired and slightly suicidal Detective Bill Hodges, who's down on hope and but then gets a letter from a man who loved the feel of death under his old Mercedes wheels.
You'll float too.
Stay imaginary.
Thanks.
And sorry, video watchers, for losing the video. Audio only. So we'll see you in a month. Bye.
Thanks for hanging out.
The podcast that floats down here.
Hi, I'm Melissa, your Stephen King veteran.
Hi, I'm Ben, the Stephen King and horror film fanboy.
And hello, I'm Luke, your first time Stephen King reader.